You started this season with a pressing feeling. You felt like you needed to escape. You felt like you needed to be further. You felt like you needed to accomplish more. But that was never really the problem. The challenge was never fixing something that was broken inside of you. It was noticing the patterns and the experiences that made you own the identity of broken to begin with. And so we journeyed. Throughout this season, we moved through discomfort and awakening, through bushel experiences and background behavior, through stories that were never yours, and through timelines that weren't sent from heaven. And through all of that, we learned some unshakable truths. All roads led here to you, to exactly where God has you. And God does not play about you, and it's time for you to act like it. Hey sis, welcome to the Bold Becomers podcast. I'm your host, Chara Jané, and this is the space for extraordinary women of faith who love God deeply, but know that there's more alignment, more freedom, and more shine waiting for them. If you're tired of shrinking, self-silencing, or feeling like authenticity and faith are somehow at odds, you're in the right place. Here we unpack godly authenticity, bold becoming, and the shine method so you can realign your value, your voice, and your virtue and live your faith with clarity and courage. So, if you're ready to stop hiding, start aligning, and live like you were made to shine, you're in good company. Grab your journal, let's talk. Before we get into today's episode, I want to take a moment to just share that my heart is so full. I was looking at my stats this week for the podcast, and I was really just blown away to find that not only is Bold Becomers podcast international, but we have so many amazing, extraordinary women of faith who are joining this movement from around the world. And I want to take a moment to shout them out. I want to say hi to all of our Bold Becomers in Singapore, in Japan, in Brazil, and the UK. I want to say hi to the Bold Becomers who are listening in from Canada, Australia, and Germany, and to everyone else who's listening to this podcast. I just want to say, welcome to the journey. I am so glad that you're here. My heart is truly touched because all I knew is that I needed to be obedient in this season. I had no idea how many ripples it would make or how many souls it would touch, but it means the world to me that this work is not just sacred to you, but it is also something that is helping you to become all that God has created you to be. And that has always been the vision for this movement, for this podcast, for this work. And so I just want to say thank you again for being a part. And I'm looking forward to continuing on the journey with you. Now let's get into our bold declaration for today. Here is today's bold declaration. I used to become in secret, but lately it feels better to become out loud. Being bold in my becoming invites camaraderie, celebration, and support along the way. I can see how my becoming is more than just me. With each bold step, each committed yes, and each integrated lesson, I am growing and showing my light for God. I now see I can find joy in my journey because the journey is a part of the process. Today, I boldly declare I am enjoying my becoming journey. I hope that you take our season finale bold declaration with you throughout the rest of this episode and beyond. I know in some of our previous episodes this season, we talked a little bit about embracing our timeline and understanding that God has us exactly where He needs us to be. And as I was reflecting on the emotions that came up for me when we got the opportunity to just discuss those topics, I realized that I have a great level of compassion and empathy for those who find themselves in seasons that feel difficult to navigate through. I understand what it feels like to measure your goodness, your becoming by how far you are from where you want to be. And I think this is the perfect episode to really sit with that and to maybe just share some insights from my own personal reflection. This week, I had the opportunity to do some refining on my vision. And as I was looking at what I had written out over a period of times, probably about 3 years, I realized that some of the low moments that I experienced weren't just low because of how difficult things were. Some of those low experiences for me were also difficult because of my perspective and my interpretation of how far I had really gone and how far I was from where I knew I needed to be or where I knew I was going. And when I had a moment to look back over my vision and to spend the time refining it, looking at how there were so many reoccurring themes as I had written it out so many times in so many different ways, I also noticed not just the reoccurring themes, but I also noticed a reoccurrence in my progress. And what I began to notice is that I was actually a lot further along in a lot of areas than I had anticipated or that I even recognized. I was judging myself so harshly off of the idea and the picture of where I was headed that I was ignoring and minimizing celebrating the wins that I was experiencing in real time. And so, if you can take anything from this moment of my personal reflection, I hope it would be this, that you can find joy in your journey as you go. You don't have to wait until you get to the finished product or the intended idea or the destination that you had in mind in order to really celebrate and to fully be excited and ecstatic about where you are, what you've done, and who you are becoming. I hope that this will encourage you, and I hope that you can take this with you beyond this episode. Maybe you're like me and you haven't been tracking your progress. But if you've been following this season of the Bold Becomers podcast, I know that there has been some growth in you too. And I just want to take a moment to walk through what we've journeyed and grown through together. In our first episode, we talked about it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. We acknowledged how important it was to stop outsourcing blame and to start picking up agency. We talked about how important it is to recognize that accountability is not a bad word. It is not a bad thing. It is something that allows us to stand in our power and to own the agency and autonomy that God has given us. In episode 2, we talked about how to embrace discomfort. We started understanding the importance of not running from the hard thing, but understanding that if God sent it our way, then there was some invitation or some wisdom or lesson that was in the middle of it. And we started learning how to seek what messages God was actually sending us through those seasons and moments of discomfort. In episode 3, we talked about the stories that we tell ourselves. We started to take assessment of the beliefs and the narratives that have been running our lives in the background without even noticing it. We talked about how some of the stories and the narratives that we've picked up have not truly been serving who we are or who we're becoming. And we started to give ourselves permission to understand that it's okay to question those stories, question where they came from, and question how are they serving us. In episode 4, we talked about God don't play about you, so act like it. In this episode, I feel like we started turning a corner because we started closing the gap between what we say and profess that we believe versus how we actually live. And I think that it's one thing to know a thing, and I think it's another thing to embody a thing. So I really loved this episode. I loved that we got the opportunity to really stand in the ownership and the identity that we are special to God, and that if we are special to Him, then our lives, our decisions, and the way that we show up in the world should reflect it. In episode 5, we talked about bushel experiences. We started getting honest about why God allowed the pressure in our lives in the first place. And we also acknowledged what the bushel experience was designed to really reveal. We talked about how, at the end of the day, bushel experiences don't get the final say in our lives, they don't get to define us. They're just an experience that we get to move through and become through, and we get to be better on the other side of them. Episode 6, we talked about background behavior. And I feel like when we talk about bushel experiences, we then have to talk about background behavior. It's a natural progression in my teaching and in my framework for coaching, because when you don't understand the reason why you've been hanging out in the background, procrastinating, it can feel confusing. And you can start to wear a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, because you haven't identified the source. So I was really glad that we got to have this conversation. We talked about recognizing those background behavior patterns without shame. And we also did something that was vitally important, which is we began to separate our identity from the actual behavior. In episode 7, we talked about signing our own permission slip. Ah, that one was so good. I absolutely loved having that conversation with you. We talked about how important it was for us to stop waiting on someone else to authorize us in our becoming, to authorize us in our being, and to authorize us in our doing. We started to explore what it really means to embody godly authenticity, and it always starts with agency. And I really love that we got a chance to talk about that. I'm just mind blown right now that we have journeyed so far together. This has been incredible. Okay, we got to keep going. So, in episode 8, we talked about ditch the timeline. You're not behind. And in this episode, we talked about how to release comparison and how to understand our permission posts, and understanding that our journey and our path and our becoming is uniquely ours. It means that we don't have to look at someone else's journey and then feel shame about our own, because we understand that if each one of our journeys is different, then we really have no business comparing. And so I really loved this episode. I feel like it was such an encouragement. And even just hearing some of the feedback that we got on YouTube and some of the comments that were shared on the videos over there, I really just loved having that conversation and also seeing what it lit up and what it ignited in all of you. That was just a blessing for me. And then in episode 9, we got to talk about becoming is not just for you. Listen, this episode has generated a lot of conversation. I'm getting DMs, I'm getting comments, because I think that sometimes we can feel isolated in our becoming journeys and not realizing that as we're becoming, that it's a little bit of like God is refining, God is working on us, and as we're expressing, God is using us, God is blessing others, God is inspiring others to do their work and to be on their own journey and to show up in their calling and in their gifts, right? So I really loved this episode. I loved that we got the opportunity to talk about how showing up is not selfishness, that it's service. And I hope that is like one of your baseline rules from now on when it comes to showing up. I hope that that's the slogan and the mantra that comes to mind for you, that showing up is not selfish, it's service. Yeah, I mean, it's just been an incredible season. And here we are today talking about becoming is a journey. And so I just want to say thank you for hanging with us. Thank you for doing this bold becoming work. And I loved every minute of this season. I loved what it ignited in you. I love what it ignited in me. I love that we get to do this together. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to dive even further into today's episode because it's not just a culminating episode or a celebrating episode. I do believe that this topic, that becoming is a journey, is really a bridge that is going to not only take us from where we journeyed this season over into where God is taking us for next season. I also believe that it is something that is going to help us to find joy and to be able to celebrate and to really just love and fall in love with this becoming work. So, yeah, we'll be right back and then we'll dive further into this. If you resonated with my personal reflection from this episode, I want to talk to you for a second because you've probably been operating under a similar notion that you have to wait until you've arrived or until you've accomplished to actually find joy. You've been operating under this premise that I'll celebrate when I get to where I want to be, or I'll find joy when things look the way that God has shown me. And I just want to speak to you about the fact that if we're going to find longevity in our becoming, if we're going to stay committed to our becoming work, I think it's important for us to find joy in the journey. Joy is not the destination. Joy is not something that should be postponed. Joy is something that we take with us. It is that inner light that helps us to continue to persevere when things get difficult. It is that little voice that tells us that we can keep going, even when it feels like things seem obscure. Joy is not what you feel when you get there, joy is what helps you to get there. And when we postpone our joy, it makes us feel as though our timeline and the seeming delays of our timeline are failures. And that can be discouragement. That can be something that becomes a detour for us. We lose focus on what God is doing in us because we're so obsessed with getting to what God has shown us that we're actually missing the gleaning process, the mining process along the way. We talked about that earlier in our other episodes. How as we're becoming, God is allowing us to mine lessons. God is allowing us to glean lessons. And so when we find joy in our journey, it gives us permission to look for all of the beautiful things that God leaves for us along the way and to recognize all of the amazing ways that we are becoming, that we are expressing our light and our shine for God. And that expression, that growth, that becoming doesn't have to wait until it's something monumental in order to be celebrated. It's something that we get to celebrate in the present, right now, as we continue on our journey. I think that's so beautiful. And I pray that lands for you today, that you can find joy in your journey. It's time for our Shine Method connection. In this episode, I really wanted to talk about navigate your growth because navigating your growth is not a one time decision. If we're being honest, in our bold becoming work, navigating our growth is probably one of the longest spanning, transitional, and developing periods of our becoming journey because it is something that is where we are learning and integrating and adjusting and integrating and refining and integrating. It is an iterative process, just as becoming work is. I really do love to talk about this principle in the Shine Method because it helps us to know that we can be patient with ourselves and we can also take notice with ourselves about where we were when we started it versus where we are in the midst of it. I'm hoping that it gives you permission to have a posture that this season that you're in is something that is God ordained and God orchestrated. And if you can hold that posture in your heart, I believe that it allows you to take notice of all of the things that are coming to you along the way, the wins, the lessons, the growth, the experience, the becoming. Navigating your growth is also about being able to recognize your permission post quicker, sooner, faster. And as you are navigating each permission post, you're understanding that each permission post is requiring new access from you, new expression from you. And you're meeting those permission posts with openness and with trust and belief that if God is asking you to become and to release and to affirm some things that you haven't done before, then that means that there's something on the other side of that that is going to help you to gain some perspective. I can't help but think about the expression that hindsight is 2020. And when you're navigating your growth, you have to keep that in your mind somewhere because you may feel like the things that God is leading you through, the permission posts that you're learning to pass and to say yes with, they may feel awkward and they may feel really out of place for you. But I also know that what you may not understand in the present, you will begin to understand and you will begin to see how it was a benefit to you as you continue to journey forward. If you haven't picked up on it yet, I do want to just let you know in this moment that the Shine Method is not just something that you go through once. It's not like a ladder that you climb and once you get to the top, you're done, you're finished. The Shine Method is iterative and it is the thing that you take with you on your becoming journey because your becoming is continuous. And so is the Shine Method. At each new iteration of your becoming, you get to explore again and again. You get to learn again and again. You get to acknowledge and you get to evolve and develop as you go. And when you realize that, I think that it kind of gives you excitement for not just what has been and what's to come, but it gives you excitement about where you are right now because you know that you're going to see some fruit and you're going to see some growth from the work that you're doing right now. And that's good stuff. And God is doing his good work in you too. So here are some practical strategies that help you to embody that becoming is a journey and you can find joy in the middle of it. I want to talk a little bit about a practice that I personally have. And sometimes I battle with myself about whether or not I'm going to share like the intimate details of my becoming journey. And then I realized that it's in the sharing, it's in the vulnerability that you're able to see yourself and to maybe find, the inspiration that you need to, just find your way and navigate forward. So here it is. This is something that I practice and in my own journal as I'm navigating my growth and as I am committing to my own becoming journey. There are times where I will write out, I am grateful and excited for, or I am grateful and excited to. And what that does for me is it helps to ground me and it helps to center me. And I think that if you are anything like what I talked about in my personal reflection this episode about having a hard time with celebrating yourself, with acknowledging your progress, with seeing that, you know, progress is being made in real time, then this exercise is definitely for you because it allows you to start taking inventory and to start taking notice. Have you ever heard that song in church? Count your blessings, name them one by one, right? This is kind of like that. It's giving yourself permission to say, like, there are good things happening right here, right now. And I can be grateful for it and I can be excited about it. And I don't have to postpone those things. I think that's how we start to really find joy in our journey is, hey, I can be excited about this right now. I don't have to wait till it's completely finished. Or I can be grateful about this right now because I know the seeds that I'm planting in this season, even though they're seeds and I haven't seen them sprout, I know eventually they're going to get some roots. And then eventually I'm going to see some sprouts. And then eventually the harvest will come. So, yeah, I am giving this tool to you today and I want you to implement it and then let me know, what does that spark in you as you were writing it out? And what I will do, I'll say this and then I'll leave you here. But what I will do is I will exhaust myself. I will literally just write it out and think of as many things as I possibly can in that present moment that allows me to say, like, I am grateful and excited for, I am grateful and excited to, I am grateful and excited that. Like, all of these things, I literally just keep writing them out until I can't think of anything else. And then I wait a few days and I go back and read it and it usually helps me to stay centered and stay focused and to make sure that, like, my compass, my disposition, my posture is joy as I'm journeying. And so I hope this is helpful to you too. Y'all come back and let me know. Send me an email, write me on my website. You can go on my website and send me a message because I really would love to hear how this works for you. Okay? It's time for our challenge of the week. This week, I want you to do some reflection. And the way that we're going to do that is I actually want you to write a letter to yourself. I know how powerful this can be. So bear with me. But I want you to write a letter to yourself. I want you in this letter to look back on who you were when we started this season in episode 1. And I want you to write something to her that honors her, honors who she is and where she's at. And after you do that, I want you to move on to writing something that activates her, something that gets her moving in obedience, something that lets her know that it's okay to move forward and to get excited about what she's heading towards. I want you in this letter to let that version of you see herself clearly. And your assignment in this letter is to find one permission post that she passed. And I want you to tell her how proud you are of her for passing it. I want you to celebrate it. And I would love for you to share it with me over on Instagram at Chara Jané Shine. Hit me up in my DMs. I have to know, what are your wins, and share a little bit of your insights in the letters that you wrote to yourself. I would love to hear about it. Before we end this episode, I want to take a moment to celebrate you. Thank you so much for committing to your becoming work, for showing up for yourself in this season, for saying yes, even when it got uncomfortable. You kept listening, you kept doing the challenges, you started implementing those practical strategies, and you started becoming. And that is nothing to laugh about. That is something to be celebrated. You did it, sis. So proud of you, but I have to challenge you because you're not done yet. This episode was not just about culminating and celebrating. This episode is about bridging and understanding that becoming work is a journey and it's not done. If God still has you here, there's more for you to do. And I cannot wait to see how you continue to fully express everything that He's put inside of you. That is a blessing. That is sacred. That is something that is meant to be celebrated, not just when it happens at the end of the journey or at the end of the occasion or the accomplishment. It's something that deserves to be honored and celebrated every step you take. As I mentioned before, this is our season finale of this season on the Bold Becomers podcast. And our season was talking about becoming out loud. I hope that you've felt that transition within yourself to give yourself permission to become boldly and not in the background, to show up fully and not feel like you have to continue to stay hidden or just minimize who you are. I pray that every episode you have gained encouragement and permission within yourself to know that God wants to use you in this season and for this time. We will be back for another season of the Bold Becomers podcast, and I am looking forward to it. We will be back August 13th, and I cannot wait to see you there. In our next season, we're going to be talking about how to continue building on the work that we did in season 2. And we're going to get even more serious about what it means to express and to move in obedience. Listen, if this is something that resonated with you, if you have been blessed by this podcast, I'm asking in our off season if you would do me a favor. I want you to share this with other women of faith, other women who you know are becoming and evolving and need to share more of their light with the world. That's what being a bold becomer is all about. It's not just about embracing this work for yourself, but it's about encouraging others to do the same. And don't worry, if you've been following us over on YouTube, the rhythm of us showing up twice a week is not going to change. I will still be over on YouTube posting content about bold becoming work and how to continue to move forward on your journey. And if you're looking for a place to start, I am going to invite you to download my free guide, Permission to Shine. You can go over to CharaJanéShine.com and the guide is right at the top of the page. Remember, until next time, to keep becoming, embrace godly authenticity, and live with shine. I'll see you in the next episode. Shh, shh. It's time for Bold Becomers Confession. I told you that I would be adding this to the end of our episodes. I think it's important that if I'm asking you to become boldly, that I have to be bold in my becoming with you. So I'm going to share with you a Bold Becomers Confession. I would be lying if I didn't say that coming into this year, I was extremely discouraged. I had a milestone birthday, and my birthday's in December. I didn't even really feel like celebrating my birthday because I was so discouraged by where I was in my life versus it can be really difficult to embrace your timeline with grace and to understand that God's timing for your life is not delayed, it's not behind. And I think as I've continued to show up for this work this year, one of the things that has become very apparent to me is not just that my timeline is not messed up, but that there were some development and some things that I needed to navigate through personally in order to have the right perspective. I'm just really grateful that I didn't give up. I'm really grateful that I didn't run away from the assignment. I'm grateful that I kept saying yes, even when I felt discouraged or I had to move a little slower. And so I don't know what lessons you can take from this confession, but I do hope that you can see that you're not alone and just keep becoming. Talk to you next time.